Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. Tonight we have a full-packed show for you. Breaking news, a shooter at an Atlanta medical center, 24-year-old Dion Patterson, is on the loose after killing one victim and injuring three others as they fight for their lives in an Atlanta hospital. The 76ers' Joel Embiid wins his first NBA MVP award as our team plays the Celtics tonight in Boston. Aguna will talk about it later. The Federal Reserve Bank raises interest rates by 0.5 point. What does that mean for your credit card? NASCAR's Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson are part of a crash, and Stephen is here to talk about exactly what happened. After a days-long, multi-day-long manhunt, the man accused of fatally shooting 5 neighbors, including a mother and her 9-year-old son, in a Texas home, has been taken into custody, and so was his wife. In preparation for an expected surge of crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border, next week the Biden administration plans to send an additional 1,500 active duty troops to the border to free up Department of Homeland Security agents. CNN reports that a 10-year-old was found working at a Louisville McDonald's until 2 a.m. The U.S. announced a new $300 million security assistance package for Ukraine, and Russia claimed Ukraine attempted to assassinate President Vladimir Putin when it flew 2 drones toward the Kremlin overnight. Russia said Putin was not in the building at the time of the attack. That up and more if we can fit it in. First up, Stephen, NASCAR, what was up with that race and that crash with Chastain and Ross?
Well, this was a Dover race, and here we go again. The driver that I appreciate the most because he has so much talent. He's so raw, and sometimes he doesn't think enough. Well, there was a lapped car early in the race in the first stage, and there was a lap car in his way. So instead of maneuvering him around him or something, he caught him in a turn, went in a turn, and you touch him on the back. A lot of times they're going to wreck. So he wrecked and took out a contender for the entire race, the number one prospect to win the race, and wrecked him and took him out. And this is what happened last year. He's number one in the points because he's a great race car driver. He's on a pretty bad team, but he makes it away from that because he's really a good, talented guy. But when he makes people mad, it comes to retaliation, and that's why he didn't win the championship last year. Was because he wrecked a couple people and wrecked the wrong people at the wrong time. So they came back the next week or the next week, and they took him out, and it really screwed him up. So I really hope that there is going to be no retaliation. Maybe he does the right thing. He took out a guy that was not anybody who's going to be in contention, but that guy, when he wrecked, took out Kyle Larson, who was not happy. And Kyle Larson had a chance later on in the race to do something to him, but he didn't. So hopefully that's a good indication that everything's going to be okay. Next week is Kansas. It's a 1.5 mile track. It's a track you don't want to retaliate on. This was a small 1 mile track. And you can retaliate on that, a small Bristol, small Martinsville, Richmond, but you don't want to really do it on a bigger track because it could cause more injuries and more guys to wreck. So this week at Kansas, this past week at Dover, Martin Truex won. It was, I think, his 54 races since he won a race. And this guy's marquee. This guy's a great race car driver. Been with the same team forever. He's been for a long time with Joe Gibbs, and he's a great race car driver, but he just could not win a race. He finally won a race after that long. And this track coming up, Kansas, he averages in the last, I think, 6 years about a 6th place finish, better than anybody. So he's got a really good chance. Kyle Larson, who I was just speaking of, averages about a 7 or an 8, and Chastain Ross, Ross Chastain. I mean, he has about a 10. He finishes about 10 generally. So all of these guys are going to be in contention for this week for this race. So it's going to be a kind of a barn burner out in the Midwest, and it decided on how everybody's feelings are, if they can keep them in check, to whether or not this is going to be a race that's going to be cool. But I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, who actually won this race at Dover?
Martin Truex, first time he's won a race in 54 races, and he usually wins races after race, right? And the thing about the race is, this race and the championship is, Ross Chastain has not had a win yet, and there's been about 10, 11, 12 races, and there's 36 races. If you don't win a race, you don't really have a chance to get into the championship contention. So he really needs to win a race soon, and he's got the Carter. He came in second this week. He could have won the race, but Martin had a little something going on and only took 2 tires when Ross took 4 near the end of the race. So it's coming. So if he gets his win, he stays near the lead, I'm gonna be happy, because I'm invested in Chastain, and I hope he learns more and more and abides by other people's personal space. And not causes so much distraction for himself.
So
I love your hair, Stacy.
Thank you, Stephen. I think I'll probably go back to my normal hair. I'm not too happy with this. So, but thank you. I want to go on to NBA, but Aguna's not on yet, so I don't want to talk about NBA. Did you want to talk about what your team did with the NFL draft?
I mean, the Commander Skins, we got a center. We need a center. We didn't do much. It wasn't much flashy. It's going to be a year that we're going to be lucky if we break 500. Because everybody else has gotten so much more improved. I think the Eagles have lost a lot, but they've gained a lot. And they've consistently kept their core, which they have to do. They lost some pieces, but their core is still there. And I thought they were going to get a running back sooner, but they didn't. They got some really good defensive players, which they do need. And they were smart not to get a running back soon. But they made some great picks. But see, the Redskins didn't. The Giants made some good picks. Cowboys made some good picks. Everybody. So we're in a really tough division. It's going to be tough, and we don't even know which quarterback we're going to have this year. So the draft, we had to plug in a few pieces. The people that they got were people that we really did need. So I can't complain. But, everybody wants flash. Everybody wants somebody cool. But can I say real quick about the Eagles? Had they picked at number 9, the guy from Georgia who was involved in an accident.
But they picked 3. They picked 3 players from Georgia.
Yeah, but their first one at number 9 that they picked a guy that had was in an accident. He was driving. He left the scene of the accident, and he had 2 guys that died in the accident. And I think all that's been taken care of now. I'm not 100% sure, but he brings that. And when he went to the combine to try out, he was way out of shape. He didn't look good. He couldn't finish most of the things that they had set up for him. But he has so much potential. He's the best football player all around that they could have ever wished for. And if he can get in a solid team, he's got a solid coach. And like you said, he's got other Georgia players there and other Georgia players coming with him. If they can get him right, get him to be, to feel God in his heart and really come and bring everything he has. This got the potential of being a superpower, superhuman kind of guy out there. He's got all the potential, all the tools.
But I mean, the problem may be that Georgia Bulldog may not be ready after everything he went through mentally. So no matter what potential he may have physically with his strength and his abilities. And what position did he play? He was a defensive back?
Defensive line.
Defensive line.
Yeah,
we sure need defensive linemen. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
he's so good. Right. If he can get past all that, he's got good people around him, good coaches, and gets a lot of help from outside. Some people helping him with his head and working on because that's
but I
hard.
mean, for you to
He didn't
say
mean
that,
to kill him, huh?
right? Of course he didn't. Of course he didn't mean to kill anybody,
Right.
especially not his teammate. But
No, no,
when
no.
you go
Right.
through that,
But could you
but when you
imagine
go
killing
through that
somebody
type
like
of
that?
thing,
It's gotta weigh on your heart.
it has to. And I agree. And when you go through that type of thing, you just don't get over it in like 6 months and go out and play football.
I know, and that's
Sometimes
why he
you
did that
mentally
at
have to be there to train.
yeah.
If you're going to be in that type of shape and take those type of hits and give those type of hits, you have to train. And training has already started for most NFL teams right now.
Right.
The Eagles are training in the weight room right now, Cousin Todd. I know you think we're talking about baseball, but we are talking about football. They've started training to be in good shape. He's not ready, and he has to be mentally and emotionally ready to do so. And he's not ready. And I think he should be given time to do that.
You don't know that because, for example, remember Bill Cosby? When his son was killed, he immediately went back to work, and he said he needed that to get over it. Perhaps this is that kind of situation.
Well, we just said that the difference is Steven said he's not in shape. The difference is you have to be in shape. If you're going to play football, you have to be in physical shape. He's not in physical shape. Those guys are lifting right now in the weight room. It doesn't happen when training camp starts.
So you have to get drill sergeants on him. They have to get some nuns in there. They have to get a priest. They have to get people, anybody you can get that can help him get his head right and his mind right and his soul and his spirit. If they can do that, it will be miraculous. And I think I'm pulling for this kid because it'll be miraculous that he can make it and do the things he does. And with all that talent, I don't want to see it go to waste. I'd rather have him at Washington, but I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think he'll be ready by the time it comes around. I hope.
Well, what do you mean by the time it comes around? The NFL draft already happened.
By the time the season gets here, I think he'll be ready.
I don't think he's going to be ready by the time the season gets here if you said he's overweight and out of shape. Well,
you're listening to him. What would he know? This boy has been playing football all of his life.
So what's his name? What's his name,
have muscle memory.
I don't remember, but when he was at the combine, he couldn't do the exercises that they had, Todd. And although he had worked out all his life, he must have been in such a funk that he had a hard time getting out of bed, is what I can think. And now this time when he's with his teammates and with the team and he's got trainers that they can work through it with him. And people who do work out all the time, nothing better in the whole world than to work out and get your confidence back, get you feel. And people have to tell him, sorry, man, we love you. We love you. It's okay. You've been through something. We're going to go through something together. Heal. And that's what they got. It's going to be, I really do believe it's going to be really positive for him after all he has been through.
So let's talk about some of the winners and losers for the NFL draft. Winners and losers. Most players most impacted by rookies, and they're saying is Lamar Jackson, quarterback from, let me share my screen, quarterback from Baltimore.
Right.
Now, why would you think, do you see my screen? Why would you think he is one of the winners?
Oh, he just got signed to a 5-year deal. Do you mean from the draft? Why is he a winner?
Yeah, you see that $260 million. If you can see the screen, $260 million, but it reportedly has $185 million in some form of guarantees and will surely have more than $100 million fully guaranteed at the time of signing. He's going to take home life-altering money, according to this ESPN.com article. After negotiating his own deal, he won't even need to give 3% to an agent. That's right there.
You know what? You know who hates this deal? All of the agents out there hate this deal because it's telling other guys, you don't need an agent. If you have a father, a mother, or uncle, because his mother was his agent or is his agent. So he didn't have to pay. Maybe he gave it to his mom. I would hope he would. And a Cadillac and a new house.
That's the best agent you can have because your mother is going to think you are the best player in the world. You have the best genes. You have the best potential. You have the you can't get anyone more dedicated and more hardworking than that person's child, because that's their child. I mean, you can't get a better spokesperson for him than his mother. And that's for all of the athletes' mothers.
Right.
I'm sure they could say glowing things about their children.
Right. And if he can stay healthy, then they're going to be a real team to have to deal with, because they did pretty good last week as well. They've got some decent players. So, and if he can stay healthy, I don't think in the last couple of years, 2-3 years, I think he's played like, I don't know, 12 games. He's always injured. And to have that kind of money and that guaranteed money, that's a huge risk for Baltimore.
That's and then look, well, they tried to balance it out. If you look at this article, by using the number 22 overall pick on the wideout, Jay Flowers.
He's great. He's great. He's going to love him. And that's what he needed. He had garbage. He had garbage for receivers. He didn't have any. All he had was a tight end. He had
DeMarcus Robinson. You know, his top 3 wide receivers were DeMarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay, and Deshaun Jackson. Oh, they all started with D's. That's pretty cool for Baltimore.
Yeah, and that's what the hell they graded. They all got D's last year. He's got an upgrade and a good, really decent receiver in the first round that a lot of people wanted. And they were fortunate to get him. That ought to help. And if he stays healthy, he is a beast. He is a freak. He is what Kyler Murray wants to be. He is the man from the mold that did stuff that other people can't do. And he's amazing.
So let's talk about what ESPN thinks is the loser. Aaron Rodgers as quarterback for the Jets.
What?
Aaron Rodgers as quarterback for the Jets. So they're not letting me take any more articles. You see it says continue reading.
I don't see how Aaron Rodgers or the Jets is losing. Aaron Rodgers could not. Aaron Rodgers, if you look at his face, he's 21 years old right now. He is a kid. He's smiling.
Never.
He's training. He's training with the team. He's there every day. He's going to the different New York teams like basketball and hockey and stuff, and enjoying himself that way. But he is dead serious. He has something to prove. He wants to get here and show everybody what he can do. I think the Jets are definitely a team.
How much did they pay for him?
I don't know. Whatever it was worth it, because he's a top 2 quarterback of all time. And now he's on a Jets team that hasn't had a quarterback since Joe Namath. And Joe Namath wasn't that great. This is the greatest quarterback they've ever had there. And it's going to be a blast to watch this. I cannot wait. And he's got other players.
What did the Cheeseheads do? Did the Cheeseheads get anybody to replace him yet?
Oh, they've had a guy on the bench for a couple of years. It's just how the Cheeseheads do it. They had Brett Favre with Rodgers on the bench for a while, and then they had Love on the for a while for Rodgers. So this is what they do, and Love is going to be fine. He's going to be he's
who's the backup for Love?
I don't know, but I don't think anybody's going to get that position over him. He's going to be the starter, I do believe, unless something happens to him. But unless there's an injury or emergency or something, he's going to be the quarterback for the team, and he's going to be really good. And this is what the Packers do. For decades, they're going to have good quarterbacks, and it's not going to stop. And this guy's going to be in the same realm as Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. He's going to do it because it's some freaky witchcraft they got going on or something. I can't figure it out. I wish we could do it at Washington. We always get a quarterback who's not quite there or was there before, and he's not quite there.
What's the deal with the Washington Commanders quarterback, and what's the deal with the ownership with the Washington Commanders?
Oh, well, they're selling the team for record $7 billion or something like that.
That team isn't worth $7 billion. I'd give them $700,000 for that team. It's not worth $7 billion.
They're worth $7 billion, just like
they're
a
not
quarterback.
Worth $7 billion.
Just like when a quarterback.
They haven't won a Super Bowl in how many years? What year did the Washington Commanders last win a Super Bowl? Let me look it up. Do you know?
In the 90s. It was in the 90s.
Okay, so that was 20 years ago?
30 years. About 30 years ago. Yeah,
so
but that doesn't mean that doesn't.
They were $7 billion, and their last national championship was to Buffalo in 1992.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't matter in the pricing of the team. The pricing of the
Oh,
team.
yeah, it matters in the pricing of the team. It
Nope.
should matter in the pricing of the team.
But
You
it
can't
does.
sell a team that had a national championship in 1992 for $7 billion unless you're trying to rip somebody off. They're trying to rip somebody off.
No, that's not how it works.
That team is nowhere near worth $7 billion.
But you got to look at appreciation. Look at
appreciation.
A pack of cigarettes used to be 50 cents. Everything is more expensive now. That's what the deal is. Everything costs more.
Yeah,
so the
but
next
not
team,
$7 billion.
The next team that sells will sell for 7. The next team will sell for 7.5 billion. The next team after that will sell for 8 billion.
So 1983, they won their first national championship against the Miami Dolphins. Then in 1988, they won again against the Denver Broncos. And then 1992, they won against the Buffalo Bills. And because that happened, they're worth $7 billion because time has gone by.
Yeah, they won in 83, 88. They won 3 Super Bowls. It's nothing to do with that. It's about it's what things cost now.
What players on there right now? Let's look at their roster.
It doesn't matter.
What players on there right now are worth that type of money.
The players aren't getting that money. It's the team. It's everything that goes with the team. Dan Snyder bought the team for about $1 billion when teams used to go for about $1 billion, and maybe it wasn't that great of a team when he bought it. And now these teams will go for $7 billion now or more. That's what, like, you could buy a car years ago for $2,000. That you could buy a car now for $20,000. Everything appreciates through time.
So you have, if you look at the screen now, you've got Jacoby Brissett, Tim Morat, Jake Fromm, Sam Howell, Alex Arma, Antonio Gibson, Jarrett Patterson, Brian Robinson Jr., Chris Rodriguez Jr. I mean, I'm sure they're all dynamic players as I go down, but I'm trying to decide who exactly is, as a whole, how they were $7 billion.
Because that's what a team goes for, no matter their status or where they how good they are, bad they are. This is what it costs.
Okay.
This is what it costs now.
Because you're dreaming.
No, everything is more expensive than it was years ago.
Yeah, but it's not worth $7 billion. I don't care how expensive everything
is worth what you can get somebody to pay for it. Everything is worth what you can get somebody else to pay for it. And those people who bought it think $7 billion is a good deal.
So, Todd, what do you think? You're on mute. I don't even know why I asked you what you thought.
I think that's a lot of money, but I can understand why Stephen doesn't think that's a lot of money, because Fox News just paid $800 million and he thought that was like a pittance. So
it's a pittance for me. I don't know about your financial status, Todd. I don't want to guess, but to me, it's a spit in the wind is all it is.
So speaking of spit in the wind, and Todd, you want to talk about
and look at
Fox
you
News,
and let's determine how much money each of us have.
Hey, I like it. I like that $75 jacket you got on.
Mm.
So do you want to talk about, Todd? Go ahead, talk about Fox News and Tucker Carlson and him leaving and then offering him.
Oh, that he was fired. And nobody really knows why, because Fox News is a bunch of con artists and they never tell the truth. And so that's why they just paid out $800 million, because they don't tell the truth. Nevertheless, Tucker Carlson was fired. Some say because of the text that the corporate people read, and shows him being racist, as if they didn't know that before.
No, it didn't.
But also he was talking about them very negatively, and that's why they let him go. Not that they just discovered
about that.
Not that they just discovered he's a racist, because
show me where he's a racist. Show me where he's a racist.
I'm not finished speaking, dum-dum.
Show me.
So it's not a revelation for them that he's a bigoted, racist idiot. And so there has to be another reason why he was fired. other than he cost them a lot of money. But he's not the only one that cost them $800 million. There was a slew of them. And so it just goes to show these people that they can be replaced when they go too far. You remember Bill O'Reilly? He was the big money maker over there, and they threw him out. Now Sean. So who's next? And there should be a lesson to them. No, it's not going to be a lesson to them because they make money on propaganda and lies. And it has been proven, and this is why they paid out that money. And so I don't think this is going to change them at all. They'll be the next Tucker Carlson or the next O'Reilly in the wings.
No, it will not be. No, nobody's watching Fox anymore because the one person you can count on to tell the truth was Tucker Carlson. Nobody else watches. I didn't talk when you talked.
With
nobody else watches Fox except
and I had
for
to
Tucker
tell
Carlson.
you to stop talking. Remember, dum dum?
Weren't you done, honey?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I thought you were done.
No,
you sure take a long break. Do you have a hard time breathing that you have to take 5 minutes before you keep talking?
Nobody watches Fox News, and this is why they had Tucker Carlson on to get the ratings up. Why he lied and talked about replacement theory, all these bigoted racist things he discusses, and about the Dominion voting and all that kind of nonsense. So they were all lies, and this is why they had to pay out that money. And this is why people like him are gone. So, and oh, wait a minute. My point to that was, this is why they had to come up with these elaborate lies, because nobody was watching them anymore, because they had turned on Trump when they said, oh, Joe Biden won the election. And they were furious. And so they stopped watching him.
Not true.
They stopped watching Fox News. This is what Rupert Murdoch said. They had to get their ratings up, and it's about green.
Not true.
Not about, okay.
So Todd, you can't go on and on with a soliloquy. Go ahead, Stephen, then I've got to move on.
Tucker Carlson got more ratings than everybody at MSNBC, CNN, and Fox put together. He got more ratings because he told the truth. And I can prove everything he said was the truth. And on Monday, Todd, I swear I didn't talk when you talked. You're like a little tiny little dog biting on my ankle. Stop for a minute. I don't want to kick you. I don't want to kick you across the room in front of everybody.
Well, I'm
not a bad guy. I don't want to be a bad guy.
You're the devil.
But what Tucker Carlson did was he got the tapes from the January 6th insurrection. And on Monday, he showed the show where the QAnon shaman, was walking around with 9 cops. Went to the center of the attention, said a prayer for all the cops. There was no violence. So you know what they did? They let that man out of jail because he was falsely imprisoned. They let him out, and they got hundreds of other guys that have been in jail for over 800 days and have not been sentenced. And the judges are holding them because they're pieces of crap, liberal judges that are political. So stop, because you don't want the truth to come out. Stop. Tucker Carlson on the first day showed all this. The next day, on the next show, he said, I'm going to be showing this all week. Well, Fox told him that we're catching heat. Don't bring this truth out. Go and do what we want you to do. You tell the lies we want you to tell. That's why Tucker Carlson's not there anymore. The next day, they wouldn't let him show those tapes because, Todd, we live in a state-run media. We are in the Soviet Union, Todd, where the truth doesn't matter. The truth doesn't. You are on the side of the Soviet Union. You're on the side of the Nazis. Right. You don't care what the truth is as long as you think your side is winning. Well, guess what? You're not on their side. You're not in their league. You can wear a jacket, a knockoff jacket, and think you got money, and wear glasses that you picked up on the street and think you're rich. But you're not with those elitists that run these news agencies, including Fox, that are all garbage, and all of them lie. All Fox does, CNN, MSNBC, and Whoopi Goldberg, all they do is lie.
Listen, we got to talk
and you spread their lies because you don't have enough sense in your head to be an independent thinker, Todd. The whole time I talked, Stacey, Todd talked, and I didn't talk when he talked unless I thought he was finished.
Okay, thank you. We've got Nas just called up, and this is perfect timing.
What about my jacket? That's important. What knockoff is this jacket, Stephen?
It's Serena. It's from the Serena collection.
Oh.
So I want to talk about, unfortunately, the Atlanta shooting today. Let me share my screen, and we have Nas, who actually is down there in Atlanta. Maybe he can give us an idea.
He might be the shooter.
What CNN is covering is at least one person is dead.
Did you hear what that demon said, Stacey? That was not funny. He said he may be the shooter. That was not funny.
That's not funny.
That was funny. Hey, comedy is subjective, Todd.
That's not funny. People have died, and so stop it.
That's not funny.
We're not.
I didn't know if anybody had died. Did anybody die?
You're dumb. How could you know anything? Fox News is sinking in the
I don't watch Fox News. I would watch MSNBC before I watch Fox News.
Okay, excuse me.
Oh, somebody did die.
If you look at the screen, it's CNN.com article by Adrian Vaught, Elise Hammond, Mike Hayes, and Tori B. Powell. Updated today at 7:59 p.m. says at least one person is dead and at least 4 others were injured. 3 critically after shooting today in Atlanta. All the victims were female. The shooting happened after a man became enraged during a visit to a Midtown medical facility and opened fire. He was accompanied by his mother, who was not injured. Police identified the subject, who was still at large, as 24-year-old Dion Patterson. He fled the scene after carjacking a vehicle, the police chief said. Nas, what are you hearing down there?
Can you hear me, Stacey?
Yes, now I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, honestly, I haven't heard any more than you have. I think you laid out the story perfectly with everything everybody knows as of now. We got a deranged shooter, started at a hospital, no idea what happened and caused, him to, just snap. And the fact that he was there with family, so, this wasn't even a thing of him premeditating this or the idea of him trying to hide his identity. He knew they knew who he was, and he still did this and then jumped in the car and drove off. So, once again, we're back at the same scenario where we talk about, are we going to make some measures to figure out ways to keep guns out of certain hands? Or are we going to do thoughts and prayers and wait until this happens again? So, yeah, this is a terrible, terrible thing. They shut down most of, Midtown and Buckhead, Atlanta today, trying to find him. And I guess he had already carjacked somebody in another county. Excuse me. Trying to drink this Coca-Cola, man.
Sorry. Hope you feel better. Our prayers. I'm so sorry. What was so funny?
That Coca-Cola.
I was laughing because I burped all in your ear like that. I wasn't trying to. I was trying my best not to.
Sorry, we didn't know that. Our prayers are with the family of those victims. I wanted to ask Keith, but he's gone. When we have people who are shooting, we've had so many shooting incidences. Matter of fact, today, Senator Warnock said his children, his little children, I think they're under the age of 10, were in a lockdown in their school in Atlanta while he was up in Washington, D.C. on the floor talking. So, it hits everyone. No one is immune from these shootings. And when you have people in Texas, just like the shooter who was shooting in Cleveland, Texas, in his backyard, and his next door neighbors asked him if he could keep it down or go somewhere else so the baby could sleep. So he breaks in and shoots them execution style. He was just caught. What do we do, Keith, about gun control? How do we keep guns out of the hands of those who really are not supposed to have them?
Well, by keeping them in the hands of those who are supposed to have them. And that's just, I'm going to tell you the same thing I always say. Every time, my philosophy, you're asking me, so I'm giving you my philosophy. Mine is the same as the founders who penned the Constitution and the Second Amendment, that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The moment you infringe on that right, you open the door for innocent people to get harmed. The purpose of the Second Amendment is so that I, people like myself and Stephen, and I would imagine maybe some of the people on this show, I don't know, but I know that Stephen is a good man, and Stephen would be able to protect himself and his family, and I would be able to protect myself and my family. So
Very
that's the
good.
purpose of the Second Amendment. And I think
But they
that
didn't mention in the Second Amendment.
We've already seen that the laws are not enough to stop a would-be killer. I mean, if that were true, then the laws would have stopped them. But there are already strict laws. I mean, I bet you if you look at Atlanta's law, gun law, they're probably strict. I don't suppose that they're very.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
A red state like Georgia would have really strict laws. No, they don't.
No.
Oh, you don't. So anybody can go out and buy a AR. Are you saying?
I want to ask you a question.
It must have been a pistol, right? Was it a pistol he used?
Well, we're talking about Texas, and in Texas, it was an AR-15.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking about Atlanta. Was a pistol?
Yeah, from state to state, they're using different guns. So let Cousin Todd interject.
Okay, I was going to ask about the Constitution because the right to bear arms. Did they specify mentally unstable people or blacks?
No, and the reason they didn't is because that would be left up to the individual states, and each state has its law, and so all of these laws obviously are not really that effective because the criminal can always get a gun. Any kind of gun. You can kill people with a knife. If they take away all the guns, you can kill people or stabbed to death. Out here in California, we have a lot of stabbing.
So Stephen, let me ask you, what happened in Cleveland, Texas, and then another part of Texas, there was a shooting. It's almost a shooting every day. And like the Senator Warnock said, you can't avoid it. What changes can be made to make people not take these guns and just shoot them? This doesn't happen in other countries.
No, and this wasn't happening in this country as much as it is now. And it's not because we have more guns than we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years. It's not because this country has gone completely bat crap crazy, and it's evil is running the show, and these people are full of demons, and for them to kill people, this is what happened. Oh, you can have a car, you can make a bomb.
Wait, you said we're trying to follow you now. You said the country has gone crazy.
The country's gone crazy lately. Yep.
Okay, why? Why did the country go crazy lately?
Because we turned our back on God. You go crazy, you go evil, you're demonic when you turn your back on God, and that's what this country did. We had a covenant. We had a covenant with God. We keep having a covenant with Lincoln. We had a covenant with George Washington. We had a covenant. We need that again because the people in this country have lost their minds because
all right, I've got to move on.
They're evil because they're evil, not because of no guns are evil.
The Western version of the Taliban, and I'm really not interested in hearing that.
So can you repeat that, Naz? I don't think they understood what you said.
Yeah, right now we're hearing the Western version of the Taliban. That's how they go. That's how they use their authority over people. They use their religious element as a con to push forward their authoritarian ideals. So you hear this man claiming a covenant with God from the days of Lincoln or Madison or Washington. Like, just insanity.
People that have God don't go around killing people.
They had slaves at that time.
No. Just be quiet for a second. We've heard enough of you.
Christians don't kill people.
I'm going to say this, too. Sir, be quiet. Word up. I'm going to say this. When people say things like Keith did, where he said, the founding fathers and I have the same philosophy as them. Sir, you cannot, in a world 250 years later, have the same ideas as someone who lived without the idea of a smartphone, an airplane, or the idea of
indoor plumbing. What about electric and indoor plumbing?
Exactly. You're talking about
in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we didn't have this problem. Mostly in the 90s, we didn't have this problem. This is a new.
Hey, I stressed you already. Be quiet. So we can't judge things by people who have no access to those things. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to us. Matter of fact, when we're talking about this thing we're talking about now, we're talking about instability and some people having these mental breakdowns and everything else. They didn't have to deal with that in that period because they didn't know any better. They would throw them in an institution and lock them up, try any type of, whatever savage therapy was available at the time, lobotomy or whatever. So no, that's not the people we should consult when we think about things like this. They're nowhere near having the ability to solve the problem because that didn't exist in their time. Like, we weren't that advanced. So using the Constitution and founding fathers is always your cop-out. We say you just bringing nothing to the table within the conversation. So 5 minutes in the penalty box to keep. You will not get to answer the next question. And Stephen, you better not say nothing else, man. You getting shushed.
What didn't exist back then when they wrote the Constitution? I'm having a hard time hearing him. What didn't exist?
Well, what we're saying,
let somebody else tell me. I can't hear you.
What didn't exist is he said a smartphone. I said,
but you know what existed? Multi high-powered rifles existed back then. Thomas Jefferson had them. Thomas Jefferson was a gun enthusiast. They had multi firing weapons. They had everything the military had, and they intended when they wrote the Second Amendment.
They didn't have everything the military had.
Absolutely, Stacey, $1 million. Bet me $1 million. The citizens could have the same thing the military had when they wrote the Constitution. That's why they wrote it. They wanted the people to be safe. We're a different country. We're not England. We were separate from England.
Mullets. They had mullets.
They did not. They didn't know it's called muskets. They did not just have muskets. They had repeat firing. Bam, 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 bam. I'll send it to you, Stacey.
Stephen, did they have a submarine back then?
I didn't say they. I'm saying back then, when they wrote the Constitution, they had the same weapons for the people that the government could have.
A nuclear submarine?
You're not listening to me. I can't make you listen. I can lead you to water. I can't make you drink.
I try to be nice to you, man, but
no, what I'm saying is, when they wrote the Constitution, the people, the citizens, had the same firepower as any government.
Okay,
because
so
it's the fight. Shut up, man.
So Stephen, you're saying. So Stephen, you're saying.
Nobody's listening.
Stephen, you're saying it was equivalent to what it is now. And
no, I'm not. No, I'm not saying it's equivalent to what we have now. I am not saying that, Stacey.
Okay, let me finish.
No, why? Let me correct you.
Let me finish.
What they had, what the government could have, what the military had is the same thing the people could have. That's when they wrote the Constitution. The people could have no, we don't have the same thing the military has now. But the intention is we should have.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We're going to move on. We still didn't solve the problem or still deal with getting guns out of the hands of those who should not have it. This gentleman, let me share my screen. This killer, not gentleman, this killer went hiding and hid under a pile of dirty clothes. My thing is, he was, and Keith, we had talked about this a little bit earlier. He was an illegal alien. He had been in this country this was his third or fourth time coming back to the country after being deported.
5.
A part of this problem also has to deal with how to make sure that people are legally in the United States.
5 times.
Get Joe Biden out of office.
5 times. 5 times. So, one way is to make sure that he's not here. If those people who are here illegally would not be here illegally, then that's one way right there. That solves the problem for that individual. So there you go. But not
Homeland Security should call you tomorrow and hire you because you solved the problem in one quick answer. That'll fix it.
And let me say this to Stephen's point.
Don't go back to Stephen. I want you to go forward. Don't go back to Stephen. We have to move forward.
Right. Anything is going backwards.
There was 50 bombings in the 60s in 1 year. Was the world crazy then?
Where were the bombings? Were the bombings in Vietnam?
No, ma'am. It was all in the South. Black churches and stuff.
No, there was a lot. There was a lot of bombings that were by the.
There were white
by the weather, by the
bombing
Weather
black
Underground
people's
that
churches.
are running the show now. The Weather Underground
Okay.
were bombing buildings, and then they
Stacey,
became
you can move
professors.
on. I just
what's
gave him
the
the fact.
information of talking to this person? Like,
There is none.
Because the point is, everyone has a perspective in the United States, and we need to hear
and
it so
all
we
of
can.
those should not be respected. That should not be respected.
They have
nonsense YouTube garbage from the comment section should not be treated as if he knows what he's talking
And the
about.
dark web.
I know what I'm talking
Well-
about. The only dark web is where you go, Todd.
Okay, so let me move on. We need to move forward.
Stacey, breaking news: the guy was caught over in
Was
Atlanta.
he caught? Let me pull it up then on Associated Press or CNN. I'll do Associated Press and see if I can get it. And he was caught.
Yeah, they always get you. Bad boys, what you gonna do?
In the meantime, as I pull that information up, Texas Manhunt, sorry.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? They come for you.
He's a nut. He shot people. They killed people for no reason. He's a nut. He's
That's
just a nut.
I agree,
the
Steve.
Texas Manhunt stopped, but they didn't say anything about the Atlanta.
I
Which
came up.
one were you talking about, Keith?
It came up on my phone. It was I get all of that, so it came up a New York
Yes.
Times.
Thank you. Here, the suspect arrested.
They got him. Yes.
Suspect arrested after deadly Midtown Atlanta shooting, police say.
They're so busy looking for Trump. I don't know if they'll take time and do it. So, they may not have
Right.
time.
The thing is, you think that's a funny joke. Like,
It is funny. The
no way,
justice.
that's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny. It's really sad, but that's
Yeah.
how this world is. This world's nuts.
Both of y'all are corny.
This
All right,
world's
so
nuts.
let's move
This would
on.
at least be entertaining if y'all were
No,
funny.
this is definitely my area of advocacy, right here.
So
When it
I
comes,
want to move on to what happens.
When it comes to shootings,
no, when
Yes,
it comes,
please.
Police enforcements.
yes,
That's what it comes down to.
So if we look at this
Mm.
47 minutes ago, I don't know if you can see the screen. Let me share the screen. It says the suspect's mother. Can you see that? Mother of Atlanta shooting suspect says he was seeking new treatment. The man accused of opening fire at an Atlanta medical facility was seeking new treatment after being dissatisfied with the care he was receiving from the Department of Veterans Affairs.
wow. See?
Yeah, he was psycho.
Yeah. The best way.
Patterson joined the Coast Guard in 2018 and was discharged from active duty in January of this year.
The best
Why
way
was
is
he
to be
discharged?
prepared. The best way is to be prepared against that man, and they should
Yeah.
have people prepared to defend themselves.
Well, to answer Stacey's question, somebody who
In a
can be
hospital,
questionable, somebody
they
who's
should
been
be prepared
discharged,
to defend themselves.
you have to watch them closely. Don't let them buy guns, but he could have a gun
Don't
that could
let
be
them
handed
buy
down to him or
guns.
something.
What do you mean, don't let them buy guns?
Wait a minute. What did you just say?
No,
Yeah.
I said if somebody's been discharged dishonorably, or they have other cases where they're mentally not well, like that woman who went and shot 3 kids. She thought she was a man. She's crazy for thinking that. Shot 3 kids and 3 adults because she had mental issues, or he had mental issues. They still haven't let the manifesto be shown to us yet. They always let the manifesto be shown, but not yet, because that's a transgender and they're special.
Okay, thank you. I got to move on.
you guys.
Do you want to make a comment, Nas, and then I got to move on?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
I'll just say something real quick. So, no, I thought it was interesting that he said real briefly that we can put things in place to say, hey, maybe this person should be flagged as somebody who shouldn't be.
Right. That's where I wanted to go.
Now, the fact that he's willing to do that against somebody in the military, but he sees it as an infringement upon his rights for anybody else, let you know what type of quarrel.
Because my wife can say that I'm mentally deranged when I'm not, and they can take all my guns and I can't get them back.
Because you are.
Wait a minute. Somebody can be vindictive against you with red flags. Somebody can be vindictive.
Man. Like, why are you still talking?
Why don't you show your face? I show my face every week. Because you know why we do?
I don't know
We're
why.
not cowards. So you ain't got no right to say anything about any of us on here or tell us to shut up or anything else. Show your face if you want to be on the show.
Okay.
Let's see you.
Okay.
Where you
okay.
at? Where you? I don't see you. I can't see
Okay.
you.
Steven.
No, don't tell me. Don't tell me anything. You it doesn't matter. Don't tell me.
Okay, Stephen,
What
you got to
should
stop.
do is shave that cat hair off your face and
Uh-oh.
read
Man.
before you
Here we
on the
go
show.
with insults.
I don't know what you got. I don't even know if you have a face.
Here we go with insults.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Don't let it happen.
Okay,
Smart
so
guy.
okay, excuse me. Let me share my screen. I do want to discuss President Biden's deployment. The Biden administration yesterday said they will send 1,500 troops to the southern border for
Whoa.
support
Wow.
roles ahead of the expected migrant surge. So
Wow.
this article,
Wow.
can you see this article? This article was written by Natasha Bertrand, Priscilla Alvarez, and Haley Britsky, updated 11:19 p.m. yesterday, May 2nd. The Biden administration is making plans to send an additional 1,500 active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border in anticipation of an influx of migrants when the Title 42 Public Health Authority expires next week.
Are those
The U.S.
troops?
military has long provided support to the Department of Homeland Security on the border, and a surge of personnel to the area is not unprecedented. Currently, there are approximately 2,500 National Guard troops on the border, as they've done before. And then, Cousin Todd, I want you to comment. The troops would serve in administrative roles and not perform any law enforcement function. Their assistance is intended to free up resources at the Department of Homeland Security so that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection can operate more freely in the field, the sources added. Cousin Todd.
Okay. First of all, I think Stephen should rethink coming on every week with those looks. And as for the border, I think it's a good idea to get ahead of the problem. Since we know there's going to be a large influx, to be prepared is just smart. And for Stephen and Keith to act like this is something new, it's not. And they failed to mention that Obama deported more illegals, as they call them, than any other president. So how is it that, and Joe Biden was vice president at that time, so they both are on the side of the smarter people, not these brainwashed people that need an enemy, somebody to hate. Because when you are a Caucasian European living in America, you, in fact, not the Mexicans, but you are the invader. This place didn't look like this when you got here. You invaded here.
I did?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I a time traveler, Todd? Did I travel through time?
You and all of your, you look Irish to me. You and all of your people came over here and killed out the Indians and stole their land.
The Irish didn't come here and kill any Indians. You need to research some history.
I said you look
some
Irish
history.
to me. I said you look Irish.
Okay, thank you, Cousin Todd.
Thank you, Cousin Todd.
But
we're all smarter now.
Were let out of the jails to come in here and steal the country from people who've been living here for generations. Right. So you are an invader.
Right. I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Stacey, I just looked it up and I just checked it. I Googled it. And these troops, not only will they be functioning only at the administrative level, and they will not be making arrests, they will not be armed. So we're going to use soldiers. We're using National Guard soldiers.
Why do you want them armed? Do you want them to kill those people?
I want them to be armed.
Cartels
are to be soldiers. The purpose of soldiers is to be armed.
Is to kill, right?
Cartel.
And that is the purpose of using soldiers. Otherwise, you can get a bunch of pencil pushers and
thank you.
And let them work.
That's right, Keith.
Yeah.
So Stephen,
why do you need National Guardsmen to do paperwork?
Okay, Stephen, the Biden administration, we said why the Biden administration will be using U.S. troops to help relieve some of the workers for U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. That is a good idea, and it's going to help during the surge because of the expiration of Title 42.
Well, we've had
on that?
we've had millions of people come through that we don't know about. We've had people from 70 different countries, a lot of them are military age, like China and places like that, that we want to be invaded like we're being. This is just for looks. This looks good. Looks like they're doing something now.
We were invaded from Europe.
No, we were invaded by 70 different countries right now coming through our southern border, and some people are just too stupid to understand this. We have an invasion going on right now in this country, and we're in a heap bit of trouble.
Years.
But you know what? They don't care, because the people that are running this country want this country to dissolve. They don't want this country here anymore. That's what the left wants. This is what Todd supports, people who do not like the United States. They want one world government, and that's what Todd supports. And maybe he's not smart enough. Maybe he is. But this is what's killing the United States right now. This is one thing that they're doing is intentionally killing us. So to put a handful of troops that are not going to do anything but stand there, it's just for photo ops. That's all it is. Todd, I'm not the one that's brainwashed. You're the one who's brainwashed by your state-run media. We are living in the old Soviet Union right now, and all of the information you get is lies. All of the information you get is lies, Todd.
Okay, thank you, Nas.
Good man, Stephen.
Look at the two lovebirds.
Nas.
You just tell the truth. I think Nas choked on the truth. Todd, I think Nas choked on the truth, and he can't get a word out now.
Nas,
are you all right, Nas?
Go back to where you came from.
I'm just waiting on the peanut gallery to stop.
No, you're the peanut gallery. We're the show. You're the peanut gallery.
Yeah. Could you just be quiet for 2 minutes?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
Into the topic. And I think we should probably stay on topic with this, and then we can kind of figure out some of the things going on. So, do we all agree that we have an advanced GPS system, surveillance and monitoring from the sky, you might as well say, to be able to see not only surges, but clusters of people, and we can predict seasonal work when it runs out in other places or fallout from other places when things will happen? I think we're all answer yes to that.
Yes.
So the answer is what? To put preventative measures in place to deal with the problem.
Get in front of the problem.
You have somebody win an election and take on the majority of the processes that their predecessor did. In what way is it productive to act as if this person is doing something that is totally foreign to what we've done on the border for the past 40 years? So to me,
it's foreign.
Hatred of
It's
Biden.
the worst it's been in 40 years. It's the worst it's been in 40 years.
Just be quiet. Just be quiet. You don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Stephen, come on.
I said I'm sorry.
No, you're not sorry. You're stupid. But anyway.
I'm not stupid. I'm intelligent, and I tell the truth. You wouldn't know the truth if it slapped you in your face.
I'm sure you think so. So anyway.
I know so.
All right. So are you finished, Nas?
Well, I mean, I couldn't.
Go ahead.
Doing what he does. It's Tourette's or something. So anyway, so when you have policy, that one group wants everything to go badly, or somebody doesn't want to solve the problem. No, these are really difficult things to solve, which is why term after term after term, we come up with different ways to try to fix it, but we haven't found the answer, capital A, and we probably won't during the next 5 years or so. But what do? You try your best to manage it and do what you can. There's no reason to say somebody hates America or wants the downfall of America or wants it to fail or anything like that. Every statesman that sat in that chair wants the place to be better than what it was when they leave.
Nope.
So at a certain point, man, we got to either have good faith conversation and take away this intention where you're some kind of, victim and everybody else in the whole world.
They're taking advantage. Right.
Like,
But I gotta say, Republicans don't want to solve the problem because It gets
Donald Trump did.
people
Donald
to
Trump
vote.
tried to build a wall.
It gets
You see
people
what
to
I mean?
vote.
Like,
Yeah, I
this is
know.
emotional
It
nonsense.
gets.
That's
It
not
gets people
emotional.
to.
It's a fact.
Oh,
They
will
wouldn't
you
let him
shut
build his
up?
wall.
Shut
They
up.
wouldn't let him build the wall.
Shut
And
up.
Joe Biden
Shut
said,
up.
"Come
Shut
into the
up. Shut
country,
up.
everybody."
Shut up. Shut up.
Well, Stacey, let's do this. They didn't have a problem with getting the wall built. The problem was when they actually talked to the experts, they said it would be ineffective and a huge waste of money. So they solidified the areas that they felt were important.
Like Fauci, like the Fauci experts.
But what, dude? Now you're talking about a health.
Yeah, like the Fauci experts. We all.
Just be quiet, man. Just be quiet. So because of that problem, they're trying to figure it out, trying to get things rolling. You're trying to make this into some kind of DR team conversation when the conversation should be about, okay, Americans at large, how do we solve this problem? And are we willing to say that we like cheap labor enough and cheap goods enough to where we're willing to put up with a certain amount of it because of the benefits that we see as regular American citizens in our spending practices from what we eat, what we wear, and everything else. So how much of this is give and take? We're willing to have some of this go on, and then on the back end we get, oh, fix it. But that's an impossibility to have one without the other. So I don't get what you're doing here with this. And again,
Well,
Biden, not a big fan of Trump, but their policies are similar on the border. Matter of fact, he transferred the majority of Trump's policies over. So if you're against Biden on this, you also have to be against Trump.
No, that's the biggest lie you've ever told. That is the biggest lie you've ever told. You are a liar, Nas. You wash your mouth out with soap.
You see how many times you said that?
You are a liar.
Crazy.
The gentleman who did the GoFundMe and promised to build a wall, he only served 2 years. Well, I think he was sentenced to 2 years in jail because he grifted the MAGA base who were willing to send him their money because they thought a wall was coming.
Okay.
Which Mexico was supposed to pay for. Remember, Mexico's supposed to pay for that wall.
That deserves a response. The response is we know that we know that Nas is lying because Biden wants to let Title 42 discontinue. He wants to discontinue it. He's going to let it run out in 2 weeks, and all of them are on the border, just ready to storm the border. So we know that Title 42, the purpose of that was to help to reduce the introduction of deadly diseases over the border into our country. And we know that because
wait, what deadly disease? What deadly disease?
COVID.
There was never a pandemic.
There you go.
No, there wasn't a pandemic. No, you're right.
Does he have the same policy?
Right, Stephen?
Right. There was never a pandemic, and Todd's right about that. There was never a pandemic.
Okay,
It was
if
fake.
there was no pandemic, what is Title 42 to do then?
Title 42 was to keep them, was to send them back home and keep them. It demanded that they be sent back. That's already immigration law.
To prevent what?
That they also be checked for diseases, for COVID. That was during COVID. And they never did it. They didn't do it. Biden did not do it.
Okay, I got to move on. I got to move on. Sorry.
Millions of unchecked people.
You
They
guys
go back and forth. First, there was no pandemic, but Title
There was.
42
It was
for the
fake.
pandemic.
It was
So
fake.
then why did Trump come up with Title 42 then?
To try to keep people out of the country, to have another weapon to keep more people from invading
so they
this
just
country.
made that
Todd,
up.
we're invaded right
Wait,
now. Don't you
just
understand we're being
answer the
invaded?
question. So he
Does
just
everybody
made
on
that
the show
up.
understand we're being
He
invaded
made
right
that
now?
up. Yes, I told you we've been invaded for 400 years.
Todd, because you have that in your mind, you can never think clearly.
Okay, I got to move on. Thank you.
When
Supreme
people
Court,
come
if you
into
look
your
at this,
country and take it over and
You're
kill
losing your
the
country
people
because
who
you're a
was there,
racist.
that's an
You
invasion.
can't do a real show with this person on.
You're losing your country and you don't even see it.
Hysterical. Listen to it.
okay,
She's not a smart person.
please look at the screen. The Supreme Court. All 9 Supreme Court justices push back on oversight. They raise more questions, the Senate chair says. So this article was written by Devin Dyer, April 28th, Friday at 11:51 a.m. And you see all of the new Supreme Court justices. There's no conservative liberal divide on the U.S. Supreme Court when it comes to calls for a new enforceable ethics code. All 9 justices, in a rare step on Tuesday last week, released a joint statement. That means no one abstained, not one. Sotomayor, not one abstained. They released a joint statement reaffirming their voluntary adherence to General Code of Conduct, but rebutted proposals for independent oversight, mandatory compliance with ethic rules, and greater transparency in cases of recusal. The implication, though not expressly stated, is that the court unanimously rejects legislation proposed by Democrats seeking to impose on the justices the same ethics obligations applied to all other federal judges. Start with Keith. Do you think that they should have ethical oversight, Keith?
Well, yeah, the ethical oversight in the Constitution says it's the legislatures. The legislatures have the ability, they have the constitutional authority to decide what kind of oversight. And that's in the Constitution already. So I don't know what the big deal is or the big fuss is. Just the problem will be, of course, the divide in Congress. It's not the divide on the Supreme Court. It's the divide in Congress. They're not going to agree as to what the code of ethics ought to be. That's where the battle will be. But yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephen. There is no divide, Stephen, between the Democrats and the Republicans or those Supreme Court justices that were put on the court by Democrats or Republican presidents. There's no divide. They're all sticking together. They're saying we're not American. No, they're saying we are not appointees.
We don't want oversight. We don't want it.
Hey, I can say what I'm going to say. Let me say it. I don't rarely say anything. Now I'm saying it. Oh, hush up. Todd.
I can't.
They're saying that they don't want to be held to the same ethical requirements that federal judges are, in which a lot of them were federal judges.
Right.
They're saying that each one of them, not one of them abstained. They're saying we're no longer federal judges or appointees. We're Supreme Court justices, and nobody has to tell us what to do. Is that right, Stephen?
It's exactly right. Because who are the people that are going to tell them what to do? We have 3 branches of government. They're one of the 3. The president don't want it. Congress, Senate don't want it. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants this crap. Nobody does. So Congress, the Supreme Court, they don't want it. So who's going to do it? But this is something you have to understand is George Orwell, Animal Farm. And something I just found out just a few minutes ago about an hour ago, that I thought was apropos for this world, of what's really going on in this world that you need to understand. The reason we have so many people coming through the border, the reason we have all that going on is because of sex trafficking children, and our country's involved in it. But also, you're not going to believe this, but you're going to believe it because of the country we live in and the world we live in right now. The world we live in right now, Todd, listen, you're going to love this. A billionaire has just bought Epstein's Islands. So it's going to be continued. And all the people that were on Epstein's list, they're never going to be shown to the public because it's Animal Farm. Go read Animal Farm. Some animals have more rights than other animals. And you know what, Todd? Me and you are the same animal. We're not those animals up there that get special rights and special treatment and above the law. We don't get that, Todd. We're down here. So why do you and I fight and you and Nas fight? Why are we fighting when we're all on the same side? We're the ones that are getting kicked in the head by the ones that are way up there.
Cousin
No.
Todd.
Okay, first of all, ma'am, I am no animal.
Yes,
You,
you
on
are.
the other hand,
You're a cool cat.
okay, so they need oversight. And how dare those Supreme Court justices uh, think they can be above the law? For
They are.
example, they should have to abide by the same rules.
I
Now,
agree, Todd.
and this
We agree.
this thing where that you can police yourself
The
is
marriage is back on.
the what?
The marriage is back on.
Ma'am,
We agree,
I
Todd.
would rather jump into a tub full of razor blades.
That's
Now,
that's on the honeymoon, Todd. That's at the honeymoon.
Todd, we agree. Todd and I agree on that. They need
All
to
right,
be.
Todd, sum it up. We're running out of time.
you cannot police yourself. They can't police themselves. And Clarence Thomas just showed you that when he didn't recuse himself from what that his wife was doing with the insurrection, and also what he just did, letting this millionaire pay for his mother's house and not report it, and all these kind of thievery, these thieves. But that's typical of him. You know, you can look at him and tell he's a con artist.
Yeah, they ought to crucify him, right, Todd? He's a black conservative.
No, they shouldn't crucify him. They should just do like they used
Feed him to death. Just
Hang
feed him
him.
to death.
Observation.
Okay, Nas.
Stacey, can I make one quick observation?
No. We let you talk.
Well, I wanted to make one quick comment.
Quick.
It's
Well, just wait a minute. I'm sure you
Okay.
can keep
Wait
one
a
idea
minute.
in your head for a couple of minutes. All right.
Don't be so sure.
The idea of the Supreme Court was supposed to be this body, this body that didn't have any political affiliation or links. And as we know, like throughout our lifetime, the actual opposite is what occurred. The court has always been political. That's why there's fights when an administration is coming in or going out. If somebody is, getting close to retirement age or, close to leaving the court, because it's a political body at bottom. Now we're in uncharted territory where we're saying, okay, back in the day when a Supreme Court justice was caught, entertaining railroad barons in order to give them favorable legislation, he was kicked off the court. So nowadays we got a situation where John Roberts' wife was directly benefiting from his job, where Clarence Thomas is directly benefiting from his job, from a billionaire, just money paid out. And ultimately we come to the conclusion of how much does a Supreme Court justice cost? We can look at Brett Kavanaugh's fines and debt that was paid off by some mysterious, benefactor. So when you look at a situation like that, and you say, okay, should we really have lifetime appointments for these? And also, should these things be able to be used by the Dems and the Repubs as a vehicle to get through whatever they want during their period of holding a majority in the court? So, yeah, all of this needs review, and there definitely need oversight. And like all institutions, it tries to protect itself. Like Stacey said, Sotomayor, all those other ones voted, in lockstep. Why? Because they don't want oversight. They want to be seen as the wise men and women who can give clarity to what we're seeing in the world. And we should always, kind of bend to them. That's how they feel. But no, this thing has to be redone. It has to be I don't want to say expand the court, but it has to be done in a different way. Because right now what we have is just political infighting, and the billionaire class decides what each party does, and they just buy them or rent them. And, that's trouble. This was supposedly, you guys love the founders. These were supposedly the things the founders were worried about, where you create a class of nobility here without the title of king or queen. But in function, it's similar to George III. So, yes, this has to be addressed. And it's a shame that the Dems aren't going to fight harder against this because they want to benefit when they have the numbers. And it's a shame that the Repubs, because John Roberts can count, he's not going to kick Clarence out and lose the ability to control the narrative and have the votes in his pocket. So, yeah, this is what do you call it? Crap show? I guess I can't curse, right? Yeah, it's a crap show all the way around.
Okay, what was your point that you want to add, Keith?
Well, listen very carefully to why I agree with Nas and I agree with Todd. Now, I want you to hear this. This is very awesome. I mean, for people that are listening to the show who want to be educated, you think about the Constitution. Here's what it says in Article 3. Section 1. Section 1, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts, those are all the federal level, as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior. Good behavior. Now you can go out and you can say what's good behavior or not. You can argue that. That's another argument. But it does say that they must be held to a standard. Everyone should be held to a standard, and the Congress is supposed to make sure that standard is upheld. And then in the Federalist Paper, number 78, that's what talks about defining the Constitution. It says that basically the same thing. It says the judges ought to be regulated. They ought to regulate their decisions by the fundamental laws. What is the fundamental law? The laws of nature and nature's God expressed in the Declaration of Independence, rather than by those that are not fundamental. So that's why I say everyone should be held to the standard of natural law, the laws of nature, and nature's God. That part, I'm sure that Todd and that's where we'll have the argument. I'm sure that Nas will probably reject.
Okay. But, all right. Let me move on because we're running out of time.
Thank you, Nas.
So the feds, I made a mistake. The Federal Reserve, I made a mistake in the amount of a rate hike the Federal Reserve made today. It was 0.25%. Mm-hmm. And according to the CNBC.com article, it says Wednesday's decision comes amid U.S. economic fragility and over the objections of prominent Democratic lawmakers who urged the Fed this week to stop rate hikes that they insisted could cause a recession and cause excessive loss of jobs. I'm sorry, I thought you saw that. However, the labor market has remained strong since the increases started in March of 2022. At the same time, inflation is still well above the 2% target that policymakers consider optimum. Multiple officials have said rates probably will need to stay elevated, even if the hikes are put on hold. Start with Keith. That's pretty important. If Democratic lawmakers are saying that they don't want the Fed to make any more rate hikes because they think it's going to send us into a recession and people are going to lose their jobs. Why, Keith, this is for Keith, would the Fed continue to do that? And what happens, do you know? And if you don't, that's fine. I'm sure someone else does. What happens when the rates continue to hike like this? What happens to our everyday person's credit card debt?
Well, the debt goes up, and that's why my wife and I are out of debt pretty much. Well, we have a little bit on our outstanding on our credit card, but we paid off our credit cards. So, but then again, the way the system works is you have to use a credit card, and we're getting more to the cashless society. So everyone is being forced to use credit cards and plastic and so forth. And yet they want to keep raising the rates. So it's going to be devastating on our economy eventually. I'd love to hear Aguna's response to that eventually. But yeah, it's going to get worse. You know, it's going to get worse, much worse, because they're not going to stop spending. The Democrats and even the Republicans are continuously spending our money. So the rates are going to keep going up. And the money, it's value. That's just the way it's going to happen. Sorry, Stacy.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Keith. Everybody wants to take one side or the other. It's Republicans or Democrats. There's some horrible Republicans, a very huge amount, and all the Democrats are terrible. I can find one that's good, and that's JFK Jr., who's running for president. And I would vote for him because you know what I am? I'm an independent thinker. So I like the RFK Jr. But the problem we have, and the reason we're having to do all this crap now, and the reason everybody's going to be hurt is simple. And it's not because of politics. It's not because I hate anybody. It's because of Joe Biden's policies. Everything he's done has hurt us.
Like
all
what?
Of the spending,
like
all
what?
of the spending
like what?
that he's done,
Like what?
and
Give me an
the shutting,
example.
and we had
Give an
energy.
example.
We had energy independence in this country, and Joe Biden and his policies stopped it. That killed the country. That is retarded, Todd. It's retarded what he did. And the green crap Shiite that he's doing, the green Shiite, is killing us. The spending for green is killing us. What we had was solid under Trump. Stuff I don't like about Trump. But what he did was solid, and we had energy independence. Stupid Joe Biden's policies are killing us, Todd. That's the problem, and there's nothing we can do about it now.
Okay,
the
thank
ship has sunk. We are the Titanic, and you ain't seen nothing yet because of the man you support.
Okay, thank you.
My case,
I've got Aguna and Nas on the line. And I don't know what's going on with my phone, but you can try. Let's start with Aguna. We're talking about the Fed rate hike decision and how it may spiral the United States into a recession and cause loss of jobs.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just because of lending. You know, we were real spoiled with rates being very low, so companies were able to expand, hire, and borrow a lot of money. And now, in a reaction to that, you're going to have companies that are going to try to contract a little bit. And the Fed knew, you know, in order to stave off inflation. Remember a couple months back, everyone was complaining about inflation and how that's, you know, going out of control. Well, this is the counteract to that. And, you know, I coming on the show and listening to Stephen, and I could tell he doesn't really understand how things work, especially when it comes to energy policy and things like that. Just because you have green energy policies, it actually created a whole different economy when it comes to electric vehicles and things like that. So, you know, for every time you keep saying that things are hurting, it's very interesting that he couldn't tell specifically what policies Joe Biden did. And then if you look at Trump, we weren't energy independent under Trump. That's a lie. I mean, that, you know, it's a global market. So the U.S. oil companies don't want to be independent. You can't force oil companies to sell domestically. In fact, that was a President Obama policy that allowed them to sell in the global market. So, you know, you got to educate ourselves. And one of the things we have to do is just don't get into more debt.
But
you know,
I mean,
if you have a credit card, pay it off, and don't wait
spend
for the adjustable rate to go up, because you're going to end up spending more paying towards interest versus
thank you,
you know, the principal.
Cousin Todd.
Absolutely. Now, of course,
right,
Stephen did not mention any specific plan that Joe Biden had that raised the debt ceiling. But now, Trump, of course, they raised it 4 times for him to give tax breaks to wealthy people. And I want to know why Republicans always go after poor people to get their money, like people on welfare. They just came up with this plan that people on welfare have to be actively looking for work in order to get benefits. But they never talk about big companies paying no taxes. That would really bring money in instead of going for the poor people. And they always want to deal with Social Security. How Social Security should be checked every 5 years. You should have to like reapply and that sort of thing. So it's obvious that the Republicans are for the wealthy and Democrats are for all people.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Stephen and Keith don't know that.
So you
Okay,
agree with
thank you.
DeSantis and Disney?
No, Keith, I got to bring Nas in here. Sorry. Go ahead, Nas.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Aguna raised some great points on this, but if I can add something to this conversation, I think changes the tone and the idea behind what we're talking about. So GDP, gross domestic product, that tells you what a nation makes. PPP, purchasing power parity, that tells you how the average consumer, how much they can purchase with their dollars. Right. So in an era of inflation, PPP for the average citizen is hurt. So when they tell you about employment numbers, say, oh, it's a robust economy. There's jobs everywhere. You get a job. Okay, the next question is, how much do those jobs pay? And how many hours can the typical American work? We're talking about a lot of people working one full-time job and a part-time job in order to deal with the discrepancy in what they used to pay.
You're breaking up. You're Naj,
Because
you're breaking up.
he has a cold. That's the most sense he's ever made.
It's like an echo.
This is a class conversation that excludes the working class. So the conversation is typically about how much employers are, set to lose if this is not done or if this is done, instead of the conversation about, okay, how are people doing with housing? How are people doing with their car payment? The things that they actually have to deal with. So the Dems are pushing and saying, well, you're going to increase the cost of money if you continue to raise these interest rates, and you're going to make it more difficult for the average Joe, which is going to piss them off and make them hate us. So that's the Dems stepping in. But it's a tepid step in because ultimately both parties are still binded by the donor class who determines what they do. So this conversation should be reversed, and we should be talking about how it affects working families and what they can buy and what essential things they have to always purchase and how this will affect that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry if I can't be more clear. I tried to put it on speaker.
No, you cleared up. It was good. Thank you.
It's better.
Credit cards there used to be a time when your credit card, if you were not overdrawn, if you're not, outstanding, you don't have the high interest that you would have if you were beyond your limit, your credit limit. But now they do it even if you are just paying off, month to month. I know that because we pay ours month to month. We're not in debt, but yet we still would pay high interest if we use the card. And that's wrong.
Right. No, but see, that's what happens. Wait a minute, Aguna. That's what happens when the interest rate goes up. Then you have to pay more because the credit card company gets paid more. So then that means the interest rate for you.
Every month you are in debt. You're paying debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So if you pay your credit card, are you talking about the minimum balance? Or are you talking about the full balance?
No, I'm talking about the full.
Every month, the full balance. You're not getting charged any interest.
No.
So I have credit cards, but I pay off the balance. I don't get charged at 30. Some of these, I have a card that's 27% interest on the card. I pay that card off if I use it. I pay it off before interest has occurred. Why do I use that card? Well, it's a United card, and I fly. So I use the card to buy airline tickets. I get points. Yeah. I make sure that I put enough cash aside to pay for that. I want the rewards, right? Because all these companies try to give you incentives to use it, but you have to never use a credit card. This is for our listeners. Never use a credit card if you can
pay off.
You have to be able to pay that whole balance off every month. Because again, if you miss a payment, they're going to incur interest. If you go to a store and they give you an introductory rate just to get 20% off that purchase, just make sure you pay that whole balance. Now, I'm not talking about towards principal or anything like that. You got to pay that whole balance off.
Okay, thank you. We're out of time. Thank you very much. We're out of time.
Well, I agree, Aguna. I agree. Hey, one other question.
That was perfect what he said. The only problem is the majority of Americans actually exist outside of that and do have to use that credit card and pay Peter to, Peter pay. Hope they catch up the next month or the month after, and hope no calamity ensues. So
that's a different conversation, though. That's a different. I get it. But
all right, we're out of time. We're literally out of time.
Here's the thing.
Aguna.
Well, let them finish this.
In order to stay out of debt.
They'll be out of time.
Yeah, but no, more than that, though, it's not a mindset thing. It's a thing of people being credit crunched to where they're going to damn near usury rates in order to get some because they've been shut out of different credit markets and, you know, exploited in so many different ways and dealing with all of the cost of living right now. All of everything so high.
You're right.
So I'm agreeing with you, Aguna, and saying that's the way to handle it. But I'm saying the majority
everyone
of Americans
cannot
right
handle it that
And
way.
it's hard for people to get access to credit because it takes money to make money, and it's also, you know, we to your point.
Okay, I
it's
gotta
almost
stop
like
you.
We're incentivized to go into debt in order.
We all found agreement, Stacy. We
We're
found
out of time.
Incentivized to do that.
We all found agreement. Yeah, we all agree.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Well, we
Yeah.
start
So real
talking
quickly,
reckless.
excuse
As
me,
long as
real
Steven
quickly.
doesn't talk reckless, we actually make sense on this show.
Okay, real
Yeah.
quickly,
Blaming somebody else for his problems.
real quickly,
That's
as a
good.
part of the roundtable, Aguna, the Sixers and the NBA playoffs and the NFL draft. Aguna, real
All
quick.
right, real quick. So go Sixers tonight. I know they got one in Boston, so I think they're struggling tonight. I got to get to a television so I can watch the game. But Embiid came back. Harden went off. People are saying that, you know, Embiid is holding Harden back, but he got the MVP. So hopefully, you know, depending on how this game goes, they can, you know, get two in Philly and maybe still close it out at home in 5 or 6 games. But anyway, but the draft, the Eagles, everybody is unanimous. The Eagles had the best draft. They got an A+ grade. They brought every single Georgia Bulldog defensive player into Philly. But Jalen Carter, great pickup. He was picked to go number 1 overall on a lot of draft boards. I don't know why Atlanta did not pick him up, by the way. They got Bijan Robinson probably because that name's a little bit more flashy because they didn't need a running back. But then Nola Smith coming in. So you got two, you know, cornerstone defensive tackle, defensive ends coming into Philly. They didn't. Then they got Rango. And then they also traded for Smith. So, I mean, this was a really good draft. It fulfilled a lot of holes. And also, we got cheaper, younger.
Yeah, it was
stronger.
It was a way to cheaply make up and fill those holes. It was really, really, you know, a beer budget way to try to get to the same point and spread that money out.
Compromising the talent, though. So, I mean, even though it's a cheap way to get it, you're not compromising the talent in which because I mean, you 49ers paid Hargrave $80 million. They're going to pay these two young men $20
Much
million.
less than that. Yeah, less than half.
Aguna, do you have any reservations about your number 9 pick at all?
A lot younger.
Aguna,
Okay,
do you have any reservations of your number 9 pick, your first pick?
No.
Okay.
I mean, this guy is coming back into a locker room with his buddies. You got Fletcher Cox. You got a lot of guys out there that are going to be able to support him. You know,
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier.
Off the field issues are overblown when it comes to these guys. These guys are professionals. I know, you know, they're distractions. You know, they're young, but at the same time, you know, because of the age of social media, a lot of this stuff is overblown when these guys, you know, are because again, he was acquitted or whatever was going on with that racing issue or whatever. But then he's going into a veteran locker room with a lot of
Graham and a lot of vets.
Think about winning a national championship and then going and playing in the NFL on a team that just went to a championship. You know,
that's pretty big. Nas, do you want to talk about what your Dirty Birds of the South got with the draft, NFL draft?
Nothing.
Why Carter didn't come down here. A big reason why is the Falcons are terrified of bringing in.
You're breaking up.
He's saying that Falcons are terrified of bringing in Georgia guys.
Oh.
In Atlanta, where you can kind of.
Yeah, I think you have to come off of speaker.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Nas. Can you come off a speaker, Nas?
That's your witness protection voice you're using.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he's under the gun there.
We don't know what he's saying, Aguna.
No, it's clearer when you're off mute. When you're
I don't know what he's saying, but I like the way it sounds.
clearer.
You almost sound like you're speaking a different language. So
Yeah, it's clearer when
He's
you're
speaking in
off
tongues. He
speaker.
found religion and he's
Shut
speaking
up,
in
shut up.
tongues.
Okay, let's move out. We're done here, I think.
Yeah,
Hey, one question to Todd.
no question to Todd. No question to
One
Todd.
question to Todd. Do you agree with Disney being forced to pay now taxes equal shares, fair tax, by DeSantis. Do you agree?
I hope you don't go there. I hope you don't go
Todd,
there.
Todd said
because
Todd
that is the most egregious. Republicans have always been about capitalism, big business, and what DeSantis is doing, he's cutting off his nose to spite his face.
No, but that's not what Todd said.
That tax base contributes to the economy. What they would have paid in taxes, it's already being paid based on the economic value that Disney brings to Orange County.
Not the way Todd.
You want to go tit for tat. I think what DeSantis is doing is going to backfire. And he's seeing you're spending millions of dollars in litigation costs fighting Disney, who's actually bringing jobs to your state. You look stupid doing that.
But are they?
All right, thank you. To our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the women and men of the U.S. military for all you do and sacrificing your lives so that we are free to choose whatever we want to say on this show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker.
Look how weird they are.
Nas.
We're so weird. We like books.
They're so
And
weird.
Todd, where are your books? Stacy has books. Where are your books, Todd?
And my cousin Todd. I'm Stacy Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going on Twitter and Instagram. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Twitch. Check us out on TikTok, and Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. We will see you next week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Stephen, Keith is married, you home
Good night,
wrecker.
everybody.
Goodbye.
I'm not interested in Keith sexually.
He's married.
I'm not
home
sexually
wrecker.
interested in Keith.
He's married, home wrecker.
No offense, Keith. You're just not my type.
Yeah, see? You've been let down rough. You see that? See what all that heavy petting gets you? Nowhere.
Well, the heavy petting was fun.
I asked Todd, I had to ask Todd that because he made a statement about corporations, didn't he, Stephen?
Yes, sir.
And so I just want to know if he thought Disney, I mean, they're privileged. They get special.
Right. They're like their own state within Florida. They have super privileges that needs to be reeled in a little bit. It needs to be reeled in. And I like what DeSantis has done.
They made that deal.
That's because it's hurting you personally, Aguna. Because it hurts you personally because you got so much stake in Disney World or some crap. If it didn't hurt you personally, you wouldn't say a word.
Are you making Mickey Mouse the enemy of the state?
You go to bed with Mickey Mouse ears on your head.
It's ridiculous. It's an embarrassment.
You got Mickey Mouse pajamas with footies.
I'm leaving. Listen, you're so funny, even though you won't marry me.
It's an embarrassment. I mean, most Republicans are looking at DeSantis like this is so desperate.
It's beyond stupid.
What he was doing was he didn't like what the woke garbage that Disney was doing, and that's what it's all about. He doesn't like the woke garbage. He doesn't like children being infiltrated sexually. He doesn't like children have to deal with sexual problems and stuff.
They're gonna put it on people going to Disney to pay more money.
Who's going to Disney anymore? Why would you go to Disney? I'm not going to Disney. Not even Epcot.
You don't have to go to Disney. But anyway, that DeSantis, that lady boy trying to fight.
That lady Disney. Boy is ex-military. He was a JAG officer.
Yeah, I bet he was.
A JAG officer. I don't think he's a lady boy, Todd.
Get out of my face.
If we had to put him against somebody else on this show who called him a lady boy, who would be the lady boy? DeSantis?
You and DeSantis.
Okay.
And your boyfriend.
I'm the lady boy with DeSantis.
Marry you.
Okay.
All right,
okay, I'm leaving. They're not getting married after all.
DeSantis is a man's man, and that's why you don't like him.
Of course he's